Rachel and Ron Show, featuring fun and deep discussions about the things that affect female entrepreneurs most, as well as tangible tools to grow their business, all the while living their best lives. And now, give it up for your hosts, Rachel and Ron.
Hey, Ron.
What's up, Rachel?
Good morning. Happy Tuesday to you.
Happy Tuesday. I got a new microphone.
You did? Oh, my gosh. Oh, that's a cool one. Yes. Yeah. You know, what I love about what happened last week is that's just how things roll sometimes, right? Like you have to put yourself out there, you try it. And yeah, that was a little bit of a microphone fail, but you fixed it that day and here we are.
Dude, it looked like, honestly, it felt like high school. I was talking to two like gorgeous ladies and both of you were like I sense it every time I was talking. You're like, okay, this is making me uncomfortable. There's this look of horror on your faces.
But the sound is so good.
Oh, okay. It's crisp, right?
Yeah, it's really good. So tell me how your week was.
Rachel, my week was so good. Actually, so I'm going to show you. I texted you this picture yesterday. So I have a story. So this happened to me yesterday. Literally, my hair was orange. And I mean, my sister fixed it and now it's normal again. But it was a big deal. And I texted you, I was like, is this bad?
Right. So first the microphone and then the hair. But I have to say though, I was a little bit smidgy disappointed this morning when you showed up having changed your hair color because I wore this top specifically so we would match.
I understand.
And also, I don't know if you know this, but it is National Kiss a Ginger Day.
Oh.
Yeah, so you could have gone out with your red hair and who knows what you could have made happen today.
It would be cool if it was red. It was not red. It was like a hybrid of, it had like blonde pieces because we were trying to go blonde. So what happened was, check this out. So what happened was, so Saturday night, my co-parent, she was telling me that, she's like, she had like deleted all my pictures on Facebook. Which sounds really harsh, but it's not like, it was not like I knew it was like, and as I said to her, I was like, oh, right on. She's like, don't worry. It's like, I saved them, but it just doesn't need to be on Facebook. And I was like, I get that. Like, I was like, that's like what you're supposed to do, right? Like we did get a divorce. I mean, like it's a real thing. So she's like, yeah, it's what you're supposed to. So I was like, and she brought up like a story of someone that we know that like got upset about her new husband, which is my friend, long story. And anyway, so I was like, oh, I should do it too then, like, because then it's weird, you know? So it took me like an hour and a half to like, you know, copy them off of Facebook and then delete them. And then it's so funny. So like I was expecting it to be like this emotional experience, right? Where I'm like just like getting rid of like, it wasn't that bad until I saw a picture of myself. It had nothing to do with Carrie. It was just like me. I was 29. And I looked at this guy and I'm like, and I just started crying. Like, and this was before I even met her. It was just like this. I remember it was just, I was in this point in life and I was so unhappy and I was so scared. And like, it just felt like a completely different person. And I just started crying, you know, I was like, like just putting it all out there. And I just kept saying, I'm like, dude, it's going to be amazing. Like, it's going to be all good. Like, but I think it was like what you're going to go through in the next 10 years is going to be rough or like 8 years. But I was like, you have this amazing kid, like you're going to have this amazing business. And so it was like this really cool thing. And then I realized I was like, oh, I'm saying goodbye. I'm saying goodbye to my past. Like it was like a huge releasing moment, you know? And then so that was Saturday. So then Sunday I was with my sister and I was like, I kind of want to do something crazy and like change it up. And I used to be blonde when I was a kid. So we dyed my hair thinking it was going to be blonde and it was like strawberry red, like strawberry blonde. So then we bleached it and it wasn't, we left it there for like 12 minutes and that wasn't enough. And it just looked horrible. Like it just looked terrible. It looked like I had a baby with like a skin tan lotion, you know? Like,
that is so funny.
Yeah.
I mean, and sort of tragic. Well, I'm glad you just explained it because one of my questions was going to be sort of what was the impetus? Like what drove you to want to change your hair color? And then now I clearly know you weren't going for that particular color. But what I like about this story is that you were like, okay, I'm getting rid of the past and I'm going for the new. And you did that physically, right? You went straight to the physical. which I find like kind of fascinating because you've been doing so much work on the inside, right? Like that deep thought work that it takes whenever we're going through transitions or we want to create something new. And yeah, so tell me more about that. Like
Yeah,
why the hair?
yeah, it's a great question actually. It just felt like two things. It just felt like obvious, you know what I mean? Like it felt like drastic, like it's something you can do, and if you don't like it, you can just fix it, right? But it for me, it was like, you know, it's funny as I'm saying like getting rid of the past, I was like trying to get back in a way to like what I always perceived as my authentic self, but it ended up being not. Like I thought my, you know,
Mm,
'cause I had that, like my hair was blonde up until I was like 7 or 8. And so I just thought like maybe like go back to the roots, you know, and then it turns out those weren't the roots. The roots were, and the other thing too, I thought it would be cool to like, I thought, you know, to show my daughter and because my daughter knows me as someone who, you know, dairy free, gluten free, meditates, like works like really hard to not be anxious, you know, and so like, which might be confusing, you know, like why is he working so hard not to be anxious?
right.
And so I thought like, oh, this would be kind of a cool thing to show her, like that, like I can take a risk and do whatever, you know. Um,
Yes. Yes.
yeah.
I
So that,
love that. And then like also that there weren't any massive repercussions, right? You just changed your hair color back.
yeah.
And I think about this with regards to business all the time and actually advise my clients this way too, because there are very few things that we do that have this massive ripple effect of failure, right? Like, I think building a business is all about taking those risks, and it's like the bite sized risks, right? It's just one step, just do one thing and see how it goes, right? You don't have to commit to it for a month, you don't have to commit to it for the rest of the year. Just have a show with Ron and just do the first show, right?
Yeah.
Like it doesn't have to be, we're going to do it every single week for a year. But I mean, we are, of course.
Of course, we're booked
Yeah,
out through like April now.
we are booked. We have so many people who want to be on the show. It's really exciting.
That is exciting. And I promise, along those lines, I promise I will fix this background that people don't like. People emailed me about they don't like my background.
Oh my God, you're getting like fan mail.
I wouldn't say fans. I was,
It's not fan
okay, no,
mail.
they're fan, but they're like, I'm gonna fix it. I'm gonna get like a screen divider or like a room divider.
Well, actually, I think it is fan mail because only somebody who really loves you wants to see you grow and better yourself and your environment and the way you show up, just like you do for your clients.
True. This is true. Rachel, how are you? You said you had a whole bit about my hair though.
Yeah, I did. I mean, because I
Oh,
had worn the shirt to match your hair, and then like the fact that it was National Kiss a Ginger Day, I was like, are you kidding me? This is so perfect. And then you went and changed your hair, but that's
sorry.
okay.
I ruined
Yeah,
Christmas.
yeah. So this week I had to take my daughter to the pain clinic again. She's been dealing with some chronic pain in her foot for like 16 months, which is really challenging as an adult and even more challenging as a child who is super active and athletic and can't just go out and be herself. Anyway, we were sitting with the doctor and I looked over at her as she was sitting on the table, and it just got this whole, I just started down this train of thought around just the baby steps, which is what we were just talking about. And so it's funny how like my week intersected with yours that way, but just really thinking about how any kind of progress we make happens with the first step,
Mm-hmm.
and then the next step, and then maybe committing to a slightly longer period of time, right? So anyway, that's kind of what I was thinking about this week and I was up to with her, and then
How is she doing now?
whatever.
Has there been any relief or?
No, there's not. She has to do like long physical therapy and go to the pain psychologist, which we're calling just another PT, a pain teacher,
Yeah.
because she doesn't like having to go to a psychologist. But that's okay. That's okay. These are all people, these are all people that we tell her like, mommy goes out and gets a business coach, right? Like you go out and you get a coach to help you heal with your foot. Like we all seek out the resources that we need, and this is what she needs right now. So she'll be fine in the long run. It's just a little bit hectic in the short run.
Yeah.
But that's how it is, right? Like there's no, and every week is different. Being a mom, being a business owner, every week is different. Like sometimes they need more of me, sometimes it's more emotional. I mean, you're kind of like getting in that stage where Ellie's getting a little bit older. So it's like physical and emotional.
Well, yeah, she just actually just this week, yesterday was the first day. I've been skating by like easy for easy because I just been my days are Mondays and Wednesdays, and I'd been picking her up after like at 3. And sometimes she'd be at my mom's place or something, but I'd pick her up after 3. So Carrie had her like in the mornings every day, right? And so Carrie's like, yo, like, can you help me out? You know? So starting yesterday, she's with me full days on Mondays and Wednesdays, in addition to the other days that we're together, you know? And, so yesterday I'm doing calls and she comes in like, just like in the camera without pants or like undies on, like.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. Yeah. There's reality right there.
Yeah. And like I'm coaching, like I'm having a great session with them, but we're going deep and like,
yeah.
You know, and this is a client of mine who does, she's like she is really like, she does like deep work, like intense work with women and stuff. And so I'm like, oh, you need me to go? Okay, I'm sorry. Give me 1 second, you know? So, but I found about like, whatever, moms have been doing this for a year now. So like I should.
Yeah, totally. And that's just the reality. Like, sometimes I'm on a group coaching call on one of my programs that I'm a participant in. And somebody will come on to get coached and they're like, if my 4-year-old walks in, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, no, don't apologize for your 4-year-old walking in. Like you are totally rocking it. So whether you're a parent or you just wear all sorts of different hats, like let's not make excuses for those. Let's celebrate the fact that we are all just doing the darn best we can, especially right now with the pandemic and everything. It's crazy. Yeah. But I think people understand. Did your client understand?
She was so helpful after our session. She's like, she gave me some really good tips. She's like, okay, here's what you need to do. Cause I was like before I walked her through, I was like, okay, here's some snacks, here's some drinks, here's your video games, here's your toys, I'm gonna go work now, you know? And, I mean, you can come in if you need it, but you know, and like, I didn't give her like, I should have contextualized like, hey, today, the theme, I should have had like a theme of the day or something where it's like, the theme is this. And I want you to draw it and then bring it in to show me, or, you know, like just give her like activities. I didn't do that. I am simple, but,
that's all right. Yeah. Sounds like you gave her a good structure. So that's good.
I'm learning.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do that. I'm learning. Yeah. So, but cool. You know what though? I tell you, I feel like yesterday, like as I like in the middle of it, just in the first session, I was overwhelmed. Like I was like, we need to go back to school. Obviously not right now, but like in my head, I was like, oh, and I was like, this is a great opportunity to ask for what you want. You know, I was like, this is such a good opportunity to kind of like just check in and go, yo, like, what do you want? Well, I want to be with my daughter. Like, I love my daughter. She's hilarious. Like, she's brilliant. She's so funny. Like, so I was like, stop being like overwhelmed all the time and stop. I said it nicer, but I was like, you know, stop like letting everything just set you off and just eye on the prize, like create opportunities that are in alignment with what you want. And I feel like, and then, so I got excited throughout the day where I was like, okay, I can do that. Like, I can do that. Tomorrow I'm taking a day off. We're going to go to the Science Museum, but like, super excited. But like starting next week, I'm like, we'll have like a theme and again, we'll create opportunities and we'll teach her to like generate stuff, you know, in a context. So anyway, but that's our next guest today is like a queen of that, of creating opportunities, helping women ask for what they want and get it and raise funds and all these things, right? Like, do you want to set her up?
Totally. She has an amazing story. I'm going to let her tell you her shtick because she's got an incredible pitch. But really, she is besides being a master fundraiser and trainer of other development professionals, she's just like one of the most fun, special people I know, so incredibly gifted, and has used her talent and her past to really shape what she's created. right now. So I'm excited to introduce you all to Susan Kramer.
Susan!
Welcome, friend.
Hello, hello.
Tell everybody, we're so happy to have you here, by the way. Thanks for joining us on the show.
Thanks, Susan.
Tell everybody just like your quick pitch. What do you do? I called you like a fundraising guru, but I'm sure there's a little more to that.
Oh, there's a lot more. I'm a fundraising fairy, which is way more than a guru. So
sure.
fairy has to trump guru. So partner, coach, consultant, and fundraising fairy. The reason I say that is because it's sparkly. You know, fundraising is alive and it is evolving. It's not stagnant. It doesn't stay one way. For the donors, it's not one size fits all. So there's a little bit of magic that is involved in taking someone from prospect to donor and conception to creation. So magic, however we want to define magic, and it's magical. You know, so it's magical to see something that you're planting really come to life.
Yeah.
Just like daffodils in the spring. It's like, okay, how did that happen? So there's some magical elements to it, which is why I call myself a fundraising fairy.
Oh, it's the best title ever. And we always talk about how you sprinkle pixie dust wherever you go. It's just like such a beautiful trail that you leave.
Can I ask about the pixie dust? I want to get in here, Susan, because I love this. Like, so I've worked in nonprofits, I've worked in theater companies, when I was coming up in theater and everything. And like, there is none of that exists without fundraising, right? But like, do people set out to be fundraisers? Like, is that their goal in life where they're like, man, I really want to like ask people for money all day long? Is that a thing?
I think it is a thing. It's become more of a thing because universities now have programs to train you to be a fundraiser. I think 26 years ago when I got into the field, we didn't see as many university programs offering this as a career path. And today, absolutely, it's a career path. I don't know if people set out to ask people for money all day long as much as they set out to impact humanity. So if you're going to impact humanity, then it's going to take dollars. I used to have a cartoon on my refrigerator, and it was Moses and the 10 Commandments, and the bubble said, "What about funding?" So what about funding? Everything is going to take that. And again, I don't think people set out to like ask people for money, but I want to make a difference.
And also advocate for what we believe in. So I'm not a fundraising professional, but I have certainly over the years been a volunteer who asks other people to join me in supporting a mission, a cause, something that I care deeply about. And, you know, it's always felt so easy for me from that lens, right? Because I'm not asking for people to give me $1,000 so I can go on an extra shopping spree. I'm asking for them to help make a difference. I mean, and it's just like so powerful. So like there are two things, there's so much with you, Susan, but there are two things. I think that whole piece of asking people to join us as in making an impact, right? So whether we're professionals or whether we're lay people. And then there's the idea of asking for what we want, right? And knowing that we're helping other people. So in our businesses, it's not that we're asking people because we're trying to, especially in the impact-driven, really heart-centered world of entrepreneurs, we're offering something to people because we know that they need it, that they could benefit from it. So it's not about like, oh, hey, I will sign another client and get another $1,000. The first thought is actually, how is this work that we're going to do together going to impact her life, right?
And Susan, yeah, that's my biggest question for you, Susan, in all honesty. Like, is that, do you find with the people that you work with, do they come to you completely with that mindset, or is that part of the coaching that you do to get them there?
I think that what happens, and I love the coaching and mentoring of young development professionals. I love it. I think that what happens is that a competent professional will find themselves in a role that's a bit over, you know, there's a reach for them to be able to accomplish it. So I love someone who comes to me because they have a responsibility for raising dollars, but their senior manager doesn't have time to manage that. And or their senior manager is not a fundraiser. So there is a language, there is technique, there is art, I say heart and science of fundraising. So Susan Kramer Consulting is in the heart, and I use the word art inside of that intentionally. And then fundraising, I use the word fun inside of that intentionally. So there's an art and science to fundraising. It takes time to understand sort of who you are in that space. And there's nothing better than coaches. I've worked with coaches my entire career. I've worked with coaches and mentors that can help you navigate a journey where your supervisor may not understand the journey as well. So I love to step in with those individuals. Oftentimes, and I just had it, somebody said, well, they're not sure they want to work with you. They want to, interview three other, potential consultants. I'm like, great. That's great. Because I know now, after 19 months with my consulting company, I can make a difference for them. No doubt, because my experience is showing me with my clients, they're winning. My job is for them to win. I want them to win, and I can help them win. If the client is going to choose another consultant, okay, great. It's not all one size fits all. There's the right person for the right person. When some people said to me, you can't call yourself a fundraising fairy. I'm like, why not? Well, not everybody's going to, resonate with that. I'm like, okay, then. If they won't, then they're not the clients that I want to work with, because it is that, the glitter and the pixie dust is something I want to bring to the conversation. It's a very three-dimensional experience.
That right there is such an important nugget. I just want to point it out in our conversation, because what we do here on the Rachel and Ron show is really talk about the things that they don't teach you in entrepreneur school, right? And one of the things that you just said is like, you can't be all things to all people. And if people aren't into pixie dust or whatever, fairies and pixie dust, then they're not your person, and that's okay, right? And I happen to know that your business is killing it. And so you're clearly a lot of people's person. And I think getting past the fear that we can't be everybody's person is so important as early in a business as we can, because it's really going to help us just shine in who we are and in what we have to offer.
Not only in our business, Rachel, it's really interesting, because like I'm taking a workshop now that I'm not exactly sure is going to be a great workshop for me. There's a lot in it. There's a lot of details. There's a lot of between the sessions. So everything is not for everybody. There are people that are going to be in this workshop that are just going to love it. And when the person's prepared the workshop, she can cover so many bases, but she can't cover it all. Right. So I just might not be the right client for her. So I think we have to look into ourselves also. Not only do we might not be the right client, and vice versa. Sometimes I'm the client, and sometimes I'm the client, and it may or may not work. And then sometimes it's just surprises.
Yeah. Susan, tell us how you got started, because one thing we wanted to talk about today was how you have applied just who you are and what you already know to becoming a fundraising fairy.
It's so funny that you asked that, because a thing that's related to COVID is I speak to my mother every day. And when I speak to my mother every day, she tells stories. And last night she said to me, this is who you were when you were a little girl. And I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, you had a lot to say. You wanted to share everything you knew with everybody. And you had this personality. And I was like, really? I did. So sometimes I say, check out your kindergarten report card, see what your kindergarten teacher said about you when you were in kindergarten, and apply it to your life today, because we are who we are. I am what I am. And so college wasn't so much for me. And I took a risk that I didn't even know I was taking. I left school and I became a hairdresser. And I became a hairdresser because of a serendipitous conversation with an owner of a salons and schools. Very serendipitous. I got my voice in beauty school. I didn't really have a voice until then. I was there with an eccentric, eclectic group of individuals, of which I was just one of them. There was no box to fit in, because when you're in beauty school, there's a lot of different personalities there. So that's the place I got my voice. And I have gratitude to whatever someone saw in me for me to take that risk. If you fast forward many, many years later, I moved to Colorado from the East Coast. And when I moved to Colorado, it was like, okay, what now? What next? Because I had been in my journey, owned a hair salon, been a successful hairstylist. What now? What next? And I started volunteering. And Ron, we spoke about volunteerism. I started volunteering all over the community. I was just volunteering everywhere to stay busy. And from that volunteerism, someone at the Jewish Federation of Colorado reached out to me because they were hiring. So I like to say my journey was like the claw machine in Toy Story. Susan Kramer, you belong here. And it was like, it was a deployment that I was going to work for the Federation and the Federation system. And everything I learned at beauty school about building a relationship in 3 minutes or less is what has served me so incredibly well. And people will say to me, you're a really good listener. And then I always say, yeah, you should tell my kids and my husband I'm a really good listener. But, you know, if I'm behind the chair and all I'm doing is talking and I'm not listening, I'm not creating a relationship, I'm not connecting, I'm not going to be a busy hairstylist. And I just applied that. So it was an ability to build a relationship in 3 minutes or less. And also I could throw a really cool party. And because I knew how to throw a really cool party, I thought that party planning was fundraising. And as long as my party cost less than it made, I'm fundraising. So that was really the beginning of every month I had a party, and they were everywhere. I had a party in a jewelry store. I had a party in an art co-op. I had a party at a photography studio. I just had parties. And they cost less than I made. And then, you know, I thought I was a fundraiser. Then I started to take classes. And then I got my master's at Regis University in nonprofit management. And then more classes and more classes and more coaching. And the evolution to take me to the place where now I'm like a subject matter expert in a topic that I love. Somebody said to me recently, do you ever not want to be a fundraiser or a fundraising coach? And I said, no, because I'm a storyteller. I'm a natural storyteller. And this is just an extension of the storytelling. And it's a listening journey to understand the story of the prospect, the story of the nonprofit, the story of the professional. And once we unpack those stories, that's when the magic happens. And the magic happens from that listening and the storytelling and the evolution of the individual and the nonprofit and the professional.
This is great, Susie. Like, so throughout that, like finding your voice is huge. And then, so you tapped into it at beauty school, and then the evolution like, I know you came Colorado, you're totally open, but was there ever like ego or anything or any resistance to where, like you said, the claw was taking you?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, so ego gets in the way all the time, and the journey is to like thank it and sit it on, on a stool. The resistance, it's very interesting because I say to my children or people I'm mentoring, step in the flow, the river. So you cannot evolve from the banks, the side. You cannot go with the flow unless you step in the flow. So when you say, was there resistance? It's like watching the journey evolve because you show up. Woody Allen said that showing up is 90% of the game. Okay, showing up is 90% of the game. And if you're showing up wherever you are in your journey, there is a flow that will take you. So some things maybe felt right or felt wrong. And then you have to make a decision. And I think it's a very interesting thing because they don't teach us in school how to make decisions. I wish they did. Because when the flow takes you and you have a decision matrix, right? How do you know how to make a decision? So I consulted therapists or I consulted rabbis. I'm like, how do you make a decision? And I would ask them, it's not just pros and cons when you're facing big decisions in your life, right? It's not just make a list of pros and cons, although that's important. But I really consulted different spaces to like, once the flow takes you to a decision, then how do you do it? And my friend Ellen Goldstein, who said, no decision to make until there's a decision to make. So resistance of the flow is a lot of times because you think you have decisions and you really don't.
Yeah.
So you have to just stay in that process until there's a decision to make. And then you have to engage your decision-making function.
That's perfect, because like, especially with what you do, you empower people to make decisions to support and help if it's a right fit and all that. So what is there, like a secret sauce? And then I'll be quiet, Rachel, but is there like a secret sauce to decision making? Is it like pattern based or heart based or gut based, intuition? Like, ooh, break it up, break it down.
Well, I think I would default to temperament. You have to understand your temperament. And I don't care if you've done the Myers-Briggs or the Enneagram or the Pace Color Palette or DISC or the archetypes or the Hogan Executive Analysis, of which I've done them all. It's just because I love that stuff. So you have to know yourself. Okay, the first thing you have to know is yourself. And if your temperament if you're an ENTJ, an ENFJ, an IN, you have to know who you are. And then you have to bring your authentic self to the table. I think that's the first most important thing in decision making. And then, your willingness to evolve and grow, what success means to you, all of that is critically important. And that takes some soul searching, It takes some soul searching. But really, first thing in decision making is know who you are. And know who you are. I can't say it anymore, because a lack of authenticity is going to give you the opportunity to be promoted to your highest level of incompetence. That was a book, the Peter Principle. It may happen to all of us one time in our lives, but the more we understand who we are, the less we're going to run into that.
Yeah.
That actually brings me to one thing I wanted to talk about with you, Susan. You and I connected I guess about 4 years ago after I moved to Denver, and I actually had my eye on you. I had a little crush on you because I heard you speak once and was just totally wowed. And I said to myself that first time I heard you speak, I was like, I need to know this woman. And then I've had the great gift and honor of us becoming friends over the years. And I know your journey, and I know that it took a lot of prep and the knowing yourself and stepping into that to really launch your own business. And I hope it's okay that I say, I think you launched your business at 60 years old. And there was, and like so many of us around you saw this enormous potential in you doing your own thing. And there's always fear. There's always mind trash that we're dealt, right? How did you deal with that? How did you finally get to the point where you were like, yes, I am not complete until I do this for myself?
Well, it's an amazing question, and thank you. And we have a mutual admiration society, and with your encouragement and Kelly's encouragement, I mean, really part of the major. What happened, Ron, is some of my friends, they were like, we don't get it. What's your holdback? Like, we don't get it. And then now some of my friends are like, what did you think that was going to happen? Okay. So thank God. So what was it? It was actually watching, and not to be morbid at all. It was watching the death of a friend's mother, and she was dying at home. And I visited the friend and got to, see the holiness of being able to allow a parent to die that way. And I saw her in her bed, and I said, I can't get to there and not have tried this. So that was the pivotal. The pivotal was, I can't get to the end of my life, because then it will say, what is it you hadn't tried, you didn't try to do that you regret not trying? And it was seeing mortality there, hoping that she had accomplished everything she wanted to accomplish, and knowing that I didn't want to not try that, so it was that. And then it was an enormous amount of work around fear, because fear, the fear of the unknown is so enormous. So there's faith and fear. And if I really have the kind of faith that I think I have, then won't that faith carry me through? And then I was cautious, because I launched with velocity. Rachel, I had like a few side hustles because people were sourcing me out. And some of the side hustles were successful, some weren't. The Harvard Business Review said that everybody has side hustles these days. So embrace your side hustles, guys. Because one day it could be, what you're doing. So there was a leverage that happened, success in that space gave me a little bit more confidence and a little more confidence, maybe my voice is important. So really it was looking at mortality and end of life and what do I want to accomplish? And then facing fear head on.
And you talked about like it's almost like the baby steps, the side hustle thing, right? It's like you have a win with one client and then you have more and more people seeking you out. And that's what we were talking about earlier in our conversation, Ron and I, is that's how we win in business, right? It is that first step. It is the mindset work, facing our fears, thinking intentionally about what we want. And when we look in the future, what do we want to be able to look back on and say that we did with ourselves and for others. And wow, what a beautiful story.
Build, measure, learn. My son is now all over the build, measure, learn, build, measure, learn, build. And no, Mom, it's not linear. It's a cycle. It's a cycle. It's a cycle. Build, measure, learn, and just always to be in that learning space, to evolve.
Yeah.
Always in the learning space to evolve. And I'm always learning. I have to hold myself back and only do one seminar a week because I just always want to be learning what the market is doing, what the industry is doing, what my colleagues are doing. It's just like always learning, always learning, always learning. The book stack is huge. The articles, just always be learning. I used to say, I'm desperately afraid of becoming a dinosaur. I'm desperately afraid, and it's like, desperately. Some people say, Susan Kramer, you're not going to become a dinosaur. I'm like, oh my gosh, I just evolve and don't sit in the space of like, well, that's how we do it. It's just, that's how we do it. Think differently, think differently.
I love that. I think that's one of the big messages here is finding your voice and your authentic self is really one of the most valuable things. And one of the greatest gifts that you can give yourself is to uncover that.
There's a story I wanted to share when we were talking about, courage or evolution and things like that about parenting. So my youngest was very bold and we were in a restaurant and he wanted quarters to play some game. And I didn't, that was enough quarters. We gave him enough quarters. So he walked up to the cash register and he said to the cashier at the pizza shop, will you give me a quarter? Okay, so what gave him that courage? What was that? Now, what did I do as a parent? You can't ask her that. You can't ask the cashier for a quarter. What was wrong with me? That this was a little boy. He was little, and just his cute little face walked up and asked her for a quarter. And you know what? She gave it to him out of the cash register. It's just a thing about boldness and what happens to our boldness and where does it get stepped on? Because what I should have said to him is walked out and go, now let's register you for a class in assertiveness so you can fine tune it. He couldn't read, but he knew that he wanted something and he went after it. But what happened in his educational evolution, what did it do to that? That light and that assertiveness and that boldness, it was right there. It was right there. So I hope as a grandparent, I can see that light or assertiveness in my grandson and please God, future grandchildren, and, walk them right off to an assertiveness course to fine tune that energy that they came in with.
And I think that's what, in a way, like all three of us do with our clients too, right? Is like we help them with that voice and expression of it and asking for what they want and not squelching it, right? So this is like such a gift, Susan, that you do that in this world of like, helping people share their gifts, but also like helping build awareness to organizations and build support of organizations. Cause like you said, with that Moses, with the cartoons, like, where's the funding? This is how it is, Susan, you are awesome. I'm so glad I got cause Rachel, you've known her for a while. This is my first week knowing Susan. So we're gonna wrap it up here, but this is gorgeous. Like Susan, you were great. How do people get a hold of you? How do they find you if they want to work with you in your amazing business?
So it's Susan at SusanKramerConsulting.com. So Susan at SusanKramerConsulting.com. If you want to get me really quick, put glitter in the subject line and I'll know that you heard me today. So if you're going to reach out to me as a result of this call, just stick glitter in the subject line and I will be so excited. I'll be like, oh my gosh, yay, the Ron and Rachel show. And you heard me and let's sparkle away. Let's all sparkle away.
Beautiful.
Oh, you're so sweet. You're awesome.
Thank you, Susan.
Thank you, Susan. Rachel, that was, she's so great. She's so like just such a positive person.
Yeah, she's one of my favorite people. She's just so special and full of wisdom, and I'm constantly learning from her and being inspired by her. And yeah, we've just developed a really, really nice friendship.
That's awesome. You know, I was going to ask you too, what, I feel like I just did that host thing though. I have to call myself out on it where I'm like, that's awesome. Moving on to the thing I wanted to ask you. Sorry, that is awesome. I'm happy you have people like that in your life, you know?
Yeah, but that we could also share her with our viewers. I mean, more people need to know her.
Yeah.
She's got so much to offer. I mean, there was so much in what she said. I have to unpack it all.
You were one of my favorite people. Do you know your Enneagram type?
I don't off the top of my head. I have to look it up because you asked me that before, and I should know that. Like I should be able to rattle off all the letters and numbers and colors and everything.
Colors. Because there's 9 Enneagram, but I think you're like an Enneagram 10.
Okay, I'm gonna get back to you on that.
Yeah, Enneagram 10 is like super awesome, like ridiculously awesome. I'm just kidding, they're all awesome, but there's no 10. But there should be for you. They should break the mold for you, Rachel.
Doesn't it end at 9?
It does. Well, when you were born, they were like, we broke the mold. Let's give her another number. Let's give her a 10. It's fine.
You're too much.
It's what I do. Rachel, this is another good show. We brought in someone that like we have access to that like other people can learn from. Like I don't mean to dope, but I love us a little bit.
Yeah. And it's really fun. And there are just so many nuggets in this conversation that people can apply to their businesses. And that's what this is all about, is helping women entrepreneurs grow, speak their truth, step into their most authentic self, and share their gifts with the world. So this has really been great.
Let me ask you a dirty question before we go then.
Yeah.
So I worked with this coach, Rachel Lubchansky, her name is, and Rachel is awesome because I can be like, all this stuff, all these things. And Rachel goes, here's what it is. Should we do it as like a lesson? Like, can you summarize, like, I'm putting you on the spot 100%. Can you do the Rachel thing that we all love where you're like, here's basically what she said and here's what you should do with it?
Well, I feel like, okay, in summary, right? Because I kind of pointed some of these things out along the way, but in summary, I mean, she talked about really learning how to face your fear and then step out of it. So, and that takes deep work. Like that takes regular, probably journaling. For some people, it takes therapy appointments. For other people, it takes just sitting down, sitting with ourselves and kind of uncovering where that initial fear comes from. She talked about using the gifts that we were given and really the people that we are and that we started developing in our really young age to our benefit now. So, and using that in our business and not shying away. So as Susan was like the chatty social person as a kindergartner who wanted to talk and share with everybody who she encountered, well, now she's become one of the strongest speakers that I know. Right. And so like, let's use what we know of ourselves from those early years. And then the gift of beauty school, how she found her voice in beauty school. Oh my gosh, I love that. And then we talked, Ron, about taking one thing at a time, like just taking that first step, right? Baby steps. And then after you've taken the first steps and you count a win, then get to the next step. So I'm going to rewatch this episode and I'm sure I'll have more to share, but there's that.
Awesome. Rachel, I love how smart you are. Like, you're smart. Like that was so succinct. That was really cool. Yeah, a lot of gems for sure. Wow. I just love watching you do your thing. That's why I did that. That was pure selfishness.
You're too much. All right. So with that, we've got another show next Tuesday. You can find us here at Real Impact on Facebook and our replays over on YouTube. We'll see you then.
Bye.